We're back with another build guide. Today we've got Chariot of Fire. And Chariot of Fire, for those of you who don't know, is stone and fire. The name doesn't make a lot of sense nowadays in Spellbreak. Back in the day, you can actually heal in one of the classes. I think it was Pyromancer. You could heal in your fire. It makes sense to be Pyromancer. Yeah, now that I think about it, you could heal in your fire. So what you would do is you would run fire and stone, and you didn't have to actually use one of the gauntlets. If you wanted to be Pyromancer, you didn't have to use a fire gauntlet or a stone gauntlet. You could use whatever you wanted to. However, you wanted to use fire because, you know, it's a Pyromancer class. So anyways, you would use fire. You would slam through your fire, and since you could heal in your fire, you would walk through it on fire, healing while you walk through your fire, slamming people, carrying that fire with you as a chariot. So that's where the name comes from. It's not necessarily that way now because you can't heal through your fire. You can still walk through your fire. You're just gonna get burned. So maybe don't do that. I'll show you little tips and tricks to kind of do the same thing, but not to the same extent and not to the same OP-ness. Not to the same level of destruction, but nonetheless, you'll get the picture. Let's talk a little bit about what these gauntlets are to begin with. I know I talked about the fire last game, or I know I talked about the fire gauntlet in the last video. It is a slow projectile, single shot, kind of like a rocket, and it has its sorcery is a flame wall that does ticks of 6 until it runs out. Stone Gauntlet is more of a on the ground railgun type of thing that does the same damage up close as it does at the end of its distance. It does have a cap that you can see of distance that it does, so it's not a super long range. It does go longer than most people assume it to go, but it doesn't have any damage fall off in that slot. It's one of the 3 gauntlets in the game that does not have damage fall off. Fire is another one, and then, as you learned in the last video, Toxicologist is also that, even though it does spread, so it does have a little bit of damage reduction, but not fall off. And then its sorcery is a boulder, which you can shoot, by the way, to make fire, which you'll see in this video. You can combine these things. I think it's 4 times, these 2 elements, 4 different ways, which you're gonna play right now. But when you combine them together, it's just destruction, really, is all I can say about Chariot of Fire. It is a lot of chaos. You can throw fire down the ground, smash through it. You can smash through your firewall. You can shoot your boulder. You can throw your boulder through the firewall. You can also smash through your firewall and ignite a toxic cloud to make DF, or ignite a tornado to make a fire tornado or a DF tornado if it's already got toxic in it. It does not, however, you can't make DF work with stone, so it's just gonna turn back to fire if you try that. Like if you try to smash through a DF flame, it's just gonna turn back into regular fire. So it won't ignite a tornado with DF if you smash through a DF puddle. It'll just make it a fire tornado. For now, at least. We never know. It might change at some point. They might add that in there. Who knows? My go-to runes for this class are gonna be Spring Step is the one that I would use almost every single time. And then just two overall great runes at the moment are Dash and Shadow Step. You can use those as well. You can use Flight if you'd like to flight dash. Like you cancel your flight afterwards, and if kind of flight dashes, you go up, you know, that kind of thing. Featherfall, which you can also cancel animation whenever you fire out of it. You can also make TP work if you want to, Invis work if you want to. I wouldn't really use those for this build. You can definitely use those in stone. I definitely see a lot of people use those. But when it comes to Chariot specifically, I would go Spring Step, Dash or Shadow Step, or Featherfall, maybe Flight. Just anything to get you up and down and up and down and up and down, causing as much chaos as possible. Then we've got talents. All right, so talents for this are gonna be a little bit different depending on which class you use. In my mind, you're gonna wanna use Stone Shaper for this, mainly because of the sustain, since you're gonna be on the ground for the most part. However, you can do this in Pyro if you'd like. I love playing Pyro. You get a lot of ignite. If you hit direct fireballs, you have kind of an aim, not an aim assist per se, but more of a forgiving aim if you miss, since you have the 200% over here and combust, you have the 200% explosion radius. So if you miss, you get more damage if they're on the ground. You can firefly through your wall if you'd like to. There's a lot of things you can do in the Pyro class. So it's not, in my last guide, I talked about how Dragonfire, you kind of want to do that on Pyro, mainly because it's way more dangerous to do that on Toxicologist. However, this way, with this one, with Chariot, you can kind of do both ways if you'd like to. I would still run it on Stone, specifically because you get that sustain. However, you can do it on Pyro. Pyro, I would rather have my normal Pyro build, which is going to be Runic Fluency, max rune charge of +1, rune cooldown -5% at the start. This is what I would run with Pyro with Chariot. With Fervor, get that spell cast speed 15%. I said this in the last video. It's not about how fast your projectile gets from point A to point B, but instead how many fireballs you can get off within a time span. And then you got Recovery, which is on health damage, regenerate 50% of damage taken. So say you take 10 damage of your health red bar, you'll gain 5 back within 12 seconds. And this time right here actually changes as you go. Now I'd like to give you guys 2 options for these. You can go with any of these 4 if you're gonna be on Pyro. Honestly, I think Thirsty's great, Recklessness is great, Escapist could use some work, but it's still good in this build. And then you've got Fervor. If you are running solos, Scavenging is amazing with Chariot. It's amazing. You'll actually see the video that I'm going to be playing during this thing while I'm talking about some other things later on the line is one with Scav, and it's fantastic. Trust me, it's a great time for this. You can also make Dex work if you'd like to. And then you've got Harmony. Harmony is one, if you're going to be on the ground a lot, Harmony is the one you're going to want to go to. Mainly because you don't get slowed, you don't get frozen or shocked. Plus you have an incoming damage reduction of 5% to start with. I can't remember what it ramps up to at the end, but yeah. But if you're gonna go on Stone Shaper, my go-to is actually going to be Harmony. It's not gonna be Runic Fluency. Runic Fluency has a secondary if you'd like to, but Harmony is gonna be that one that I go with since you are on the ground the whole time to get the most out of the Stone Shaper class. That's what I'm gonna go with. Fervor is also fantastic on Stone Shaper, mainly because you can just get 2 slams off very quickly. But like I said, Scavenging is great and Dexterity is great as well. Recovery is a must on Stone Shaper in my opinion. You can use Thirsty if you'd like, but one of these 2 you almost have to use. You can use Recklessness, you can just Escapist as well, but Recovery in my opinion is best for Stone Shaper. But yeah, there's some tricks with this one. I would definitely throw your firewall down and slam through that, jump over it with your spring step, bounce around with your spring step, just slam. You can use other people's fire to do this. Always just be behind fire. It also saves you from ice shots and saves you from tox slaps. This is one way for the Stone Shaper class to be more anti-toxicologist, because in my opinion, Stone Shaper is already anti-toxicologist, because if they come close to you, that's a lot of damage that they just took. I mean, you're gonna take some too if they're outbreaking you, but in my opinion, Stone is already a very anti-toxicologist build. Throw in fire to make it Chariot of Fire, and I think that is probably the most anti-toxicologist you can get, in my opinion. However, if you're in the Stone Shaper class, you do have a lack of movement. And this goes back to the thing, you can play this class, you can play this build on either side, and it's fantastic for new players and vets. I know there are a few out there vets that actually run this. I ran into one of them today, Borsalino. Shadow is another one that uses this. So I know there are other ones out there. I'm not going to go in there and just list off all of you guys. I love all you guys, but there are a lot of veteran players that play this style. But it's also very beginner friendly, so don't be afraid to get in there and mix things up. So next video we got is Toxic and Ice. I haven't actually named this. There's probably a name out there. The name I'm probably gonna go with, if I can't find one, is actually probably Freezy Pop, because it's a green popsicle. I like it. Kimbled Prime came up with that name, so shout outs to you. Love you guys, and I'll see you next time.